Welcome everyone to the 2021 Ecoschools Kickoffs. My name's Chris Metropolis, and I'm new to Ecoschools, at least since March 16th, 2020, which some of you might remember as the first day of lockdown. So I have yet to see the Ecoschools program actually working. This will be kind of the first year. Last year was kind of weird. But some of you might remember me from the Toronto Urban Studies Centre, where I worked in outdoor education for 16 years. Here we go. Now that I'm in the sustainability office, I'm thrilled to be working with a team that literally reaches the entire board. And we have even more groups working behind the scenes than you see here, like our new energy and climate action team, who are just getting started to tackle the big issues we have with our old schools and greenhouse gas emissions and future initiatives. Today, we've got Pam Miller, our illustrious instructional leader. We've got Natasha Khan, who's filling in for Jen Vetter, and Linda Nacarado is going to show up a little bit later, our awesome admin assistant and past Opal mentor. Joining us a little bit later after that will be a member from Ecoschools Canada. We're going to kick off that part of the webinar. But we are really excited to at least attempt getting our Ecoschools program going again, given all the COVID business that has made it so difficult. Obviously, we're going to have many challenges and restrictions to deal with for the rest of the year. But again, we're just going to do what we can. What else can we do? And, you know, COVID has certainly been like a wet blanket thrown on our fire, making our efforts seem even more futile and depressing. Luckily, we're going to be sharing better perspectives to embrace, to foster positive attitudes for you and your students. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. I'd also like to extend this Tdsb land acknowledgement with a video made by a group of Peel High School students. Their version offers a deeper perspective towards reconciliation and understanding our role in the world through an Indigenous lens.
When they are home, when they are home.
To try and understand how special and powerful the Indigenous connection to Mother Earth is, let's have a look at the Honorable Harvest, which is a pledge of mutual exchange and cooperation between humankind and the land. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first. Never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only which is given. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you've taken. Share. Give thanks for what you've been given. Give a gift in return for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. So now what? Land acknowledgements aren't about placing blame. They're about taking responsibility. This is why we have land acknowledgements.
Take a moment to pause and acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat, and is now home to many other diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
I'm going to actually talk about some of the poll results we had from the entry poll. And we've got 11 people totally new to Ecoschools. So thank you for joining us today and learning a bit more. And we've got 10 people who've got a couple years under their belt, 9 who are black belts, and 1 person who's a level 5. So congratulations for having that. And I'm just going to end the poll there. But as of talking about last year, we did have 41 schools who did sign up with the Ecoschools program, and it was really a pilot year. We weren't sure what was going to happen and how people would be able to proceed. In the end, 22 submitted their plan at the end of the year, but at least 41 tried it out and got to see what it was all about. And these were the end results. So 5 got participants, so they didn't do enough to get bronze, but and that's something that Ecoschools Canada is going to continue, that if you can't get as high as bronze, you're still going to be a participant and you'll get recognized for that. But we did get 7 platinum schools. So it is possible to still do enough to get platinum with this system. And everyone said how much easier it was to use the Ecoschools Canada application than the traditional Ecoschools one. So we're really excited to share this program with you this year and to have even more schools participate. And we think it's going to be a great way forward for everybody. So our goals today, we're going to be sharing some effective ways to teach climate change in the classroom, especially thinking about anxiety. It does seem that the world is on the precipice, but we don't have to think about it that way. I'm going to show you how registering with Ecoschools Canada is super easy and how you can make your plan and choose actions that support you and your school. We're going to show you some resources and supports that we've got. And of course, we'll be getting you guys to share amongst yourselves your Ecoschools knowledge and experience and thinking about how you could move forward with your Ecoschools program, especially given our crazy COVID business. Here is our agenda. We are already almost at our 9:15 part with Pam, and I won't spell it all out, but we've got an action-packed morning for you. And 11 o'clock is when you guys are going to be on the hot seat, so to speak. And wrapping up between 11:20 and 11:30. And of course, don't forget our break at 9:45. Now, we're on to our headline feature, our climate action refuse to do nothing. That is our main topic today, despite how futile things might seem given the news these days, but Pam's going to show us that action is still critical and we can still keep a positive attitude. Pam Miller, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And again, I'm Pam. I want to talk about taking action and acknowledge where we are mentally, physically in a COVID situation and give you a bit of a big picture overview. So many of you know in the summer, you heard the news that the UN Secretary General, or you heard the UN Secretary General call the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as code red for humanity. He continued to add the alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel burning and deforestation are choking our planet and putting billions of people at immediate risk. As the graph on the slide shows, the decisions we make today and over the next few years are critical in ensuring a safe and sustainable world for everyone, now and in the future. But as we know, for every crisis, children are the most vulnerable. And UNICEF released a report this year providing the first comprehensive view of children's exposure and vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, revealing that 1 billion children are at immediate high risk. Now, of course, the children that we teach in Toronto will also feel the impacts. If not, they're already feeling the impacts of climate change, physically, mentally, emotionally. In the chat, how might the students you teach be impacted by climate change? So go ahead and add that. How might the students you teach be impacted by climate change? And as I said, they may already be. Yes, asthma, psychological, oh my gosh, temperatures in buildings, worried, anxious, depressed, more pollution, more air pollution. We've seen even the masks with coronavirus, flooding, lots of respiratory issues. Yes, many of our families have families in other parts of the world. Climate change, Rouge Valley, ticks, fear, insecurity, inconsistent weather, food insecurity, food cost. Oh my goodness, absolutely. As you keep thinking about that, The climate change impacts on children were outlined by the Canadian Pediatric Society, and that indicates that children across Canada may be impacted by extreme weather events, like the one in Barrie this August, displacing them from their homes, or food and water shortages. Record heavy rainstorms like those in Toronto and in 2016 can override sewage facilities and contaminate our water. The summer wildfires cause dangerous levels of air pollution, and the hot and humid air from heat waves impacted the air quality. And of course, we've seen a rise in ticks and Lyme disease. Furthermore, children can disproportionately be affected by these and other climate-related changes because they're smaller. They metabolize more water, air, and food per kilogram of body weight than adults. And as their bodies are developing, some of their systems are not as developed, and so immature lungs or immature immune systems have to cope with these changes. And many of you mentioned the mental health aspects as well. And so according to a survey of 10,000 young people across 10 countries, almost half of young people say their feelings about climate change negatively impact their daily lives. So when we think about trauma-informed approaches to education, this is what we're talking about. Trauma maybe from racial injustice, but also trauma from climate change. More than 3 in every 4 young people say the future is frightening with regard to climate change. And I noticed that with my grade 8 class. I had, I think, 37 people on paper, but regularly 32 virtual grade 8 students, and they mentioned it often. They also felt very ineffective to doing anything. So what we're seeing is that children and youth who have contributed least to climate change and have no voting power, they're demanding leaders and education leaders to take just and equitable climate action. In a recent episode of What on Earth, host Laura Lynch talked with youth that are both involved in campaigns to improve climate curriculum in schools, as they feel it's a critical topic that is really not covered in any depth. But climate change is not the only existential crisis facing humans today. In fact, racial injustice is a 400-year-old crisis, with slavery existing in Canada for over 2 years. And climate change, unfortunately, takes any problem you already have and any threat you are already under and multiplies it. Populations that were already vulnerable to human rights abuses, from police violence to housing discrimination to poverty, face the biggest challenges in adapting to climate change. Because climate change has the potential to worsen their situation and thereby worsen pre-existent inequalities. It is no longer the great equalizer, but rather the great multiplier. And this graphic from Freedom to Breathe really talks about how things like racial justice is connected to healthcare, which is connected to mass incarceration, which is connected to extreme heat, and how everything is, again, multiplying the impacts. And in Tdsb, we've been working on climate change for the past 20 years in the Tdsb, and we're going to invite our colleague Linda Nacarado to talk about our next steps after this presentation. But the roots of the problem are much older. The practices of colonization and capitalism, including exploitation of nature and people, unrestrained extractivism, excessive pollution, deforestation, and land degradation, as well as racial and gender oppression and injustice, have led to the climate change crisis that we face today. Larissa Crawford, pictured here on the slide, is a published Indigenous and anti-racism researcher, climate change activist. She carries Métis ancestry from Penetang, I lived there once, great place, and Afro-Caribbean ancestry from Jamaica. In her interview with Oxfam Canada, she shared, we need to actively recognize that the work that we do in climate justice work must create space to restore relationships, to acknowledge the harm of systemic racism and how it is interrelated with our work with climate justice. There is a growing momentum around the world to harness the power of education to combat and adapt to climate change and ensure that young people have the critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration skills needed to take action. It's interesting that research, this is very recent research, shows that if only 16% of high students in middle income countries were to receive a climate change education, we could see nearly a 19 gigaton reduction of carbon dioxide by 2050, depending on how it is taught. And that is why education is in the Paris Agreements, and Canada has committed to enhance climate change education. But how do we do this? So again, in the chat, what would you include, or what are you going to include around climate change, especially considering the people? What are some ideas? Absolutely. So my Wi-Fi is not great. So what I'm thinking about is, how are we going to address climate change? How might we do it to kindergartens? How might we do it to grade 8s? How might we do it to our junior students? And look at these wonderful answers. Encouraging love, focusing on the local, integrate in all areas, small steps, building empathy, make habits, doing small things like recycling, design their sustainable future, imagine a sustainable future. Yes, and get outside. So as we add our wisdom, and I'm so glad people mentioned connecting with an Indigenous worldview. Okay, so as educators, we have both an opportunity and a moral and ethical imperative to shift towards more environmental and sustainable, socially just paradigms. If our students are going to thrive and survive as contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society, we must help develop knowledge, values, and skills that support humans to survive and thrive on the planet, but in balance with other living species. And I love sort of Robin Wall Kimmer's reminder to all my relations, and sustain those that sustain us. So I've been doing a lot of reading. And as we talked earlier, as the morning started, I was pretty burnt out from last year and just feeling not very helpful and trying to work with the students in front of me. And so I was like, well, what hope can there be? And so I read a number of different books. And I'm so excited to say that A Field Guide to Climate Anxiety, the author, Jaquette Ray, is coming to our conference on November 6th. So we'll tell you about that. Zoe Weil wrote The World Becomes What We Teach. And we actually just had her, and she talks about solutionaries, which is wonderful. And so there's a recording of that available for us on the Ecoschools webinar pages. All We Can Save is all about the women in the world speaking up. And so, again, really powerful work. And then I also took time to read Courage to Teach, reminding us of the values and really reminding me why I do this work. And if you're feeling burnt out, it's a wonderful read to get you back to what's important. So as I wanted to focus our talk around 3 main ideas. If we can, 1, tell a different story this year. If 2, we can live in the world we want to save in a way that celebrates it. And 3, if we can take actions that we're doing what we can with what we have where we are. So the first sort of big idea is to tell a different story. And we know that every day we're being bombarded with dramatic imagery of impending doom that is being transmitted and exaggerated by the news media. In fact, in our classrooms, I am guilty of this, showing them, the grade 8s, they can handle it, showing them how fast fashion is harming the planet. It's number 2 compared to, the oil industry. And so we end up we overwhelm them, or we infowhelm them. We tell them that humans are bad for the planet. We give them the eco footprint exercise to see how many planets we're using up. And we're showing them apocalyptic visions, like the house, sliding into the land because the sea levels are rising. But the truth is, the research is out. It isn't working. Facts don't change behaviors. And doom and gloom promote more guilt, more fear, more paralysis, and less action. The more we learn about the doom and gloom aspects of climate change, the less we do. And of course, clumping all humans as bad for the planet ignores the indigenous reciprocal relationships with nature, or those that have contributed the least. And it also undermines our ability to try to move towards a better relationship with the earth. So the truth is, we need less information and more focused on feelings. Climate change education rarely accounts for students' emotional lives, even though research shows that emotions are central to our ability to retain and act on information. Think about how much we're working on that growth mindset versus fixed mindset when it comes to math. It's the same idea. We need to work on, an emotional positive mindset. We need to give students more options than fight, flight, or freeze. And of course, mindfulness is something to think about and something you've been doing in your classrooms. It's a practice of staying in the moment, a key form of emotional intelligence. Mindfulness can increase our capacity to be present with challenging emotions and thoughts without overacting. Mindfulness can also help us to foster courage, to move beyond fear and channel those emotions to act in effective ways rather than reactionary ways. So one article I read is, don't be fearful, just get angry and then do something with your anger. I thought that was kind of cute. Another way of changing the story is to widen the scope. And some of you mentioned that we want this sort of throughout the curriculum. So cross-disciplinary research suggests that climate change should focus on the cognitive, but also the emotions, the actions, and the justice. And sometimes we see that as the head, the hands, and the heart. Of course, in kindergarten and primary grades, that might be very local and related to helping people and all our relations as we tend to the earth and we're outside and we're nurturing things. For older grades, we could link climate justice with other types of discrimination based on social and cultural identities, including race, class, and gender. And as we consider this wider scope when we take action, students are better equipped not only to address the climate change crisis, but also to further climate and other forms of justice in doing so. And we think about our equity work in the Tdsb by widening the scope and focusing on stories of environmental and climate justice. Students and educators can amplify underrepresented voices and stories. And the whole reason that Dr. Anaya Elizabeth Johnson wrote this book is because women's voices in the climate leadership arena are often suppressed, underrepresented, or just plain absent. So we need to ensure we are promoting the ideas, histories, and experiences of people from one or more marginalized personality or positionalities to ensure ongoing shifts in historic power inequities. And what I love is I'll be sending you some links within the PowerPoint. This one, climate storytelling for the classroom, is an activity, I think it's grade 4 and up, where students get to create and tell their climate story and put those things together. And so we're advocating for student voice. The last thing when we think about telling a different story is we need to hack the negative story. 80% of messaging around climate change is framed in negative terms. As a result, most youth can imagine the end of the world, then visualize a better future. And Ellen Kelsey, who was a keynote speaker a couple of years ago, writes in her new book, Hope Matters, that environmental solutions are emerging and maturing all over the world, but are often ignored or trivialized or underreported. She started the hashtag Ocean Optimism and kind of showed the amazing things that were happening. I mean, our scholars point out that our brains are wired to focus on the urgent and immediate threats, and the media for sure plays to this. But we need to teach students to be critical of the stories they're hearing, how they make them feel, and then be re-inspired by solution journalism. And this magazine, yes, is a solution journalism, and there's so much great stuff on here. So really the question then becomes, what narrative do you want to include more of in your practice? What do you want to tell more of in your practice? Do you want to tell more solutions, more underrepresented stories? Do you want to have the students tell their stories? What do you want to include? Yeah, I'm going for the solutionary stories myself. Yes, and student stories, how they're doing, their gardening, how they're developing empathy, the way they think. These are things that we can help them with. The next idea is that we want to live in the world we want to save. We want to be part of the world, not humans are all bad for the environment. And if we're going to live in that world and build our relationship with the earth that sustains us, we need to ditch the guilt about how our consumer habits are destroying the earth, because it actually won't change our behaviors. Notice I'm not saying change our consumer behaviors. That still has to happen, but we've got to ditch the guilt about it. And that's because, again, this is from research, hearing about climate change often promotes people to go out and buy more stuff. Who knew? And the reason is our guilt and fear cause us to seek happiness elsewhere. And what better solution than retail therapy? And I happen to be guilty of that and maybe live in a house that's guilty of that. I think I've seen more Amazon packages arrive than ever. So according to a recent study, gratitude for nature's gifts can rein in our existential angst about climate change. Expressing appreciation for what we've been given inspires a sense of contentment that makes people want to give in turn rather than consume more. And again, that's really that braiding sweetgrass, honorable harvest, sustain that sustains you. See nature's air and water as gifts and treat them. Say the things that we are receiving, like the coffee, as gifts. So bottom line, when we focus on gratitude, wonder, and cultivating joy, we are more likely to be restoring relationships than destroying them. And I love what's being put into the chat. Absolutely. And many of you know this well. Reconnecting outside, or sort of getting outside, connecting to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. Time spent in nature also positively contributes to our well-being. And so those of you who know that, when kids are stuck, when I worked at HJ Alexander, and I see Nadia here, the kids were in apartment buildings and they didn't have time or opportunities to get out in nature, and they were not being connected to the well-being aspects. So that's so important. All of students should have this opportunity. And of course, I love what Adrienne Marie Brown says. She's a scholar, a writer, a doula, a Black feminist, and an activist. And she talks about partnering. Don't save the earth, partner with the earth and work together to restore those relationships. So the last part of tell a new story, live like in the world that you want to save. And the last one then becomes take action. So again, taking a quote which we thought was from Teddy Roosevelt, but really from Bill Widener, do what you can with what you got, where you are. And I want to speak to individual actions. To reach our climate change goals, each of us needs to take action individually, collectively, locally, and globally. But it is unjust to put the burden of climate change solely on individuals. Individual actions alone are insufficient to address the climate crisis. If we fixate on voluntary action alone, it takes the pressure off the push for government policies to hold corporate polluters accountable. And when oil industries such as BP ask people to calculate their carbon footprint and take those individual steps towards shrinking their footprint, you know BP is shifting the blame to individuals so that they can be off the hook. The truth is we need both. We need to advocate for systemic change while still encouraging individual behavior changes. Of course, there is so much power in the collective. And that's why we do this work at Ecoschools. That's why the small actions that you do matter. Right now, there are at least 1 and possibly 2 million organizations worldwide working on issues of environmental and social justice. Ecoschools alone right now is in 3,000 schools across Canada. And that started with 3 people. So when Tdsb amalgamated, Richard Christie, Eleanor Dudar, and Mika Foster looked at what Ecoschools could do, put it into 15 schools. Our biggest time was in 400 schools in Toronto. And now when we gave the program away to Ecoschools Canada, they've gone worldwide. We are 3,000 plus schools strong. So change often stops with a small group, a new way, and then with critical mass, industry, government, and institutions take notice. Of course, working with others helps us overcome feelings of helplessness and powerlessness, and we become change agents together. The last thought I want you to think about is small. Redefine action. The most important thing, if there's one thing at all that I want you to walk away with, if we feel that our actions will never be big or impactful enough to solve the problem, we end up adopting a drop in the bucket mindset that causes despair and hopelessness. The bigger the problem, the less fixable it seems, and so the more likely we are to do nothing. But to combat our paralysis, we need to be reminded that small actions and connections do create complex systems, and then nudge ourselves to take the next first small action. And so these graphics show you that small actions are, again, build the ball of systems. And really, that's all there ever is. Small actions committed by people like us make the difference. So we need to remind students that they don't need to be more powerful than they already are. Encourage them to do what they can with what they have. And so walk away with redefining action, that attending meetings, caring for each other, celebrating your battery box. These are important things because small is all. So how are we supporting you? So to support you in this work, because not all of us feel that we have the climate change background or education to make this work, we're continuing to offer conferences that are free, and that ours is coming up November 6th on a Saturday morning, so we can do it free. And then we've got the webinars, and both of those are on our new website, which we'll show you. We'll also offer this year office hours. So we may not be able to address all the questions today, this morning. And so what we're going to do is every Wednesday and Thursday in My Path, you can register for office hours. It's really your time to come in and ask your specific questions. How am I going to do this? And we'll brainstorm together. Direct supports. Of course, you can still email us, call us, and invite us in virtual meetings. So if you want us to be present while your kids are meeting with you virtually, we would love to be part of that. We are excited to continue working with the outdoor education staff, the TOES staff, and continue to offer eco coaching. Because there's no platinum interim audits this year, we're going to offer eco-coaching to everyone. So that way you get the one-on-one support with you and your team midway through the year to check in how you're doing, to inspire you, to celebrate what you're doing, so you'll have the inspiration to keep moving. And all of this will be always advertised through our newsletters. So while Jen's away, we're hoping that Natasha Kahn, one of our newest hires, will be able to put on the mantle of the newsletter and offer you certification tips like highlight an action card and highlight COVID or highlight one of our partners to show you how you can do this work. We also are excited to talk about our Youth Leadership Action Climate Guide. And it's a brand new, it's a huge work in progress. We're working on getting it launched for November 25th. And it comes with how youth can take this work step by step. It's written for youth. And it comes with how to apply, with supports to how to apply for the City of Toronto grants. Alarani, I see your work. Is eco-coaching for students? Yes, it is eco-coaching with students. Absolutely. And how about workshops during the school day? Yes, we will be looking at that to inspire you. Sometimes it's related to money. So absolutely. Oh, and the newsletters, Hina, absolutely. We'll add you to the newsletter. And this time there's 2 newsletters you can add. One is the Tdsb one, which will be very specific for Tdsb issues. And the second is the Ecoschools Canada newsletter you can be part of. So if you don't mind filling up your emails, subscribe to one or the other or both. And the last thing, the reason we went with Ecoschools to do both or to be part of Ecoschools is because they have resources in French. They have resources for campaigns. I know Chantal is doing the happy dance. The entire platform is in French. And they have tracking sheets and videos and webinars. So if we've gone too fast today on how to do something, check their webinars or their little videos on how to in French and in English. So finally, I know I've been waiting for this for a long time. So I'm so excited to say that this is how we'll be able to support you. I'm going to leave this next slide up in terms of what small action might you start this year, individually, collective, politically, because to know that your actions do make a difference. We'll be inviting you to share these thoughts in our cafe later in the program, but just be thinking about this, and you're welcome to add that to the chat as well. And I believe, Linda, you're in the room.
Yes, hi. Hello, everyone.
So Linda, you're here. I'm so excited. You're here to tell us that the board has our back and tell us what the board is doing, real actions on climate change to complement the work that we're doing in the classroom. So take it away.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Pam. All right. Okay. So as Pam mentioned, I'm mostly presenting this morning on a report that you may have heard about. This is the annual report for 2021 on climate action. It's hot off the press. It just went to the board last week at the Planning and Priorities Committee, and this week will go to the regular meeting. The context behind this is that since 2019, when the city came out with their climate emergency declaration, the Board of Trustees endorsed that statement. In 2020, in the spring, a staff report went to trustees around climate action and outlining some of the actions needed to address climate change. And this past year, or this year, what we've been working on is this report to be presented to trustees again around what that action looks like. A really key statement that grounds this report is this idea that our students believe we're not doing enough and that our current efforts aren't useful enough, that's leaving them feeling hopeless, scared, anxious, that we need to be doing more. We want to highlight here is that we are responding to the climate crisis, not only in the classrooms by what we teach and how we teach it, but also considering that the board is a big institution. And so we have to look at how buildings are operated, how school grounds are designed and maintained, what are the infrastructure changes that need to happen to actually address this crisis. And I like that Pam really mentioned that, individual actions are great, but they're not enough. Collectively as an institution, we need to have your back and show that we're taking this seriously. So traditionally, we've been really good at this. We piloted the Ecoschools program, which has expanded nationally. There's been lots of work done around what happens in the classroom to support climate change education. What we're hoping to improve is the operational changes and investments that we make at a board level. So those two things working in balance. The report, which Chris will share in the chat, a link to it that you can see, it goes through 6 key section areas. And the idea behind this is that we want to have a holistic approach as to how the board addresses climate change and what the actions are we can take to help mitigate some of those effects. There's 22 actions that are outlined there, lots of detail. What I'm going to do is just highlight one important action from each of these sections. So the first one here, as Pam mentioned, we'll be releasing a youth climate action guide. And the hope there is that it encourages youth to facilitate and lead climate action projects. And to support this, we're partnering with the city to provide grants to help put some of those actions and those projects into effect and into reality. Buildings. This is a really big one. I'm sure you've all had real experiences with this where you're teaching about energy efficiency and climate change. And it's the winter and maybe your windows are wide open because it's really hot in your school. We recognize that we have to operate our buildings differently. We have to change how we operate them so that we can operate them more efficiently. And I think it's really important to look at this graphic here. These are the Tdsb emissions totals from the previous year. And you can see just how much natural gas, which is primarily coming from our boilers and heating our schools, how much that accounts for our total emissions. So a lot of work is being done here to support our caretakers so that buildings can operate more efficiently. All right, in transportation, we are starting the shift from in our vehicle fleet to electric. And so this means both investing in electric vehicles when possible, but also starting to build and plan for the infrastructure needed, things like charging stations and trained mechanics who can work on electric vehicles. Okay, in urban forests, we know how important trees are, both in creating space for teaching and learning, but also for their environmental impact. And so what the action here is that we'll be doubling the amount of trees planted annually at the Tdsb. We already have a really established large tree planting program. Maybe your schools received trees through that program, and we'll be expanding that program. And what I think is really interesting is that how we'll be expanding and selecting the schools that receive those trees is going to be based on climate change mitigation. So need is considered based on canopy coverage, your LOI, your proximity to major arterial roads and highways that would impact particulate matter in your air, and heat vulnerability. And we're looking at sources like Toronto Public Health to get that information. So we can be really strategic about where those trees end up in our school board. All right, when it comes to communication, we have been doing climate change and environmental work for about 20 years at the board. What we haven't been doing very well is telling that story and sharing it widely. So what we have just launched is a new energy and environment and climate action website. Chris will pop into the chat the link directly to that. You might have already had experience with the previous Ecoschools site. This is a refresh of that site with a much broader scope that now includes information on what are we doing around energy initiatives, around solar panels, around revitalizing school grounds. All right, and the last piece here that I'm going to touch on is the Environmental Legacy Fund. Again, you may have had experience with this or heard about it before, but this was actually created as part of the first climate report back in 2010. And revenues for that fund, it includes the sale of carbon credits, the income we get from the sale of electricity from our Tdsb-owned solar panel roofs, and also the sale of Tdsb e-waste. And the great thing is that we use this fund to help us with funding things like environmental professional development. So the upcoming November 6th conference, that is free for all of you because of the Environmental Legacy Fund. Maybe you've received an AQ subsidy before, also funded through the Environmental Legacy Fund. So we've been able to do a lot of really great professional development and pilot projects and really interesting things because of this fund. The example here of our action is that we want to change the terms of reference so we can include new sources of revenue. We recognize that we want to do more, and so we need to expand the amount we have in this fund. And one of those ways would be to use utility incentives and rebates that the board gets and make sure that they are funneled back into the Environmental Legacy Fund so that they can fund future work that we do around environmental action and initiatives at the board. All right, and I think it's so great that Pam mentioned that we need to start telling different stories, and we need to encourage some hope and some feelings that we are doing work and that we can continue to do this and we can celebrate the work that's being done. And so I'm going to share a few of them here. They're actually all highlighted on our new energy and environment website. But did you know that during the pandemic, when schools weren't in operation, over 800 drinking fountains were replaced with water bottle filling stations? And so this took place at over 479 schools, and this was through COVID resilience funding. And it means that we're now up to a standard of 1 water bottle filling station for every 250 students. Do you know that we have solar panel schools? Maybe you're in a school that has solar panels on its roofs and you actually never knew that. As part of our new website, you can now check to see and search which schools have solar panels. You can see the capacity of those solar panels. And we actually even include ways for you to engage your students around how do you calculate energy generation and carbon offset. So telling that story that there are over 340 schools that have solar panels. Do your students know that? And this last piece, which I think is a really great, way to take a negative and flip it into a positive. We actually have a sawmill on Tdsb property. And this came about from the onset of the emerald ash borer back in 2013. A lot of trees that died. We actually were able to use the fallen trees and that wood and repurpose it. Use it for maybe some of the seating that you have in your outdoor classrooms or on your school site. It's also used as the wood goes into our technical programs so that students can actually use it also for learning. So there's lots of really positive things that are happening. And it's important that we share those and encourage some of that hope. And so if you're interested in more of these stories, take a look at the new website. On the landing page, you'll find this timeline, which outlines 20 years of environmental initiatives and actions that have been happening at the board. And I really encourage you to share that if you need some good news stories and you want to help promote what the board is doing and what we'll continue to do.
Linda?
Yes.
Did you mean that that's a portable mill?
No, not a portable mill. This is actually set up in the, what would it be? It's like the West Tdsb admin site. Cam, you probably know the name of this site better than I do.
Yeah,
so you know it's One Civic Center.
The West office at One Civic Center. So in a sense, it's portable in that it's just put on asphalt. It's not in a building per se, Tony. So, but if you go and park in there, you can actually see it fenced off, and the board bringing lots of logs there. Yeah, Linda, there's lots and lots of questions. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to try and tackle some of these as well. It's 9:55. Let's go 5 minutes for some of these questions, and then we'll have our break at 10 o'clock and then go to 10:15. Okay, so a couple of things have changed. we have a new superintendent of facilities, Maya. She comes from the Halton Board and the Toronto Catholic Board with a high reputation of green eco initiatives. She is, whenever we pass something, she is all for it. So not to say that the other facilities managers were ineffective around the green portfolio, but Maya is super effective and super keen. So from the top down, we're going to start to see changes. Number two, we got the board passed a motion to have a caretaker help desk to help run the building automatic systems called BAS systems. And so you won't have the heat in one room and the cold in another room. And this is obviously not around COVID, because COVID, you may be opening your windows. And so it's all about the dampers and the filters and making sure that our buildings are efficient. Most of our greenhouse gases are from the heating of our buildings. And so there's going to be a GHG report card for buildings, and not to penalize the schools, but just to keep you on par. With waste processes, we're not quite focused on waste processes yet. So I know that our caretakers may not have the training and may not be as eco-friendly as possible. That's when you want to call me in. And so sometimes we have those conversations with the facilities team leader, the principal, and the caretaker, and we come up with a solution that works. Because sometimes when I've gone to schools, it may be permits that are causing grief. It may be other things that we need to find a customized solution. But so right now we're really focused on the energy portfolio. It's not to say that waste doesn't contribute to greenhouse gases, but definitely in your question, like, you won't be penalized if your window's open for your Ecoschools program. We never want to do that. But the real focus is on greenhouse gas emissions, and that is hugely in the building envelope portfolio. Dashboards. Linda, I don't know anything. Can schools get dashboards?
Yeah, so what we tried to do, what we're trying to do is get better data from our energy partners around the actual generation of energy from those solar panels. So what we have currently on the website are the total capacity for each school, and a way to generate what the energy to generate the energy calculations per school site. Now, what we're trying to do, and we're starting to get this with our our partners, is get data annually on what the actual energy generation was from a school. It's a way for us to have a better sense of, were there any issues, were there any operational concerns, so that we get more up-to-date data. Now, we don't have, I don't think there are dashboards readily available for all schools. I know some schools have been able to have sort of monitors and things in their school, like lobbies and shared spaces there. It isn't something that we're expanding right now, but there is more data now available so that you can get information on your solar panels.
Great. And just to add to that, with the hiring of a particular position of energy and climate management, that is definitely part of that portfolio. So there are two ways that you can have your voice be known. One is through our unions. So I sit on the Joint Management and Labor Committee, where representatives from ETT, the trades, caretakers all sit, and we work together for the environment. And then, of course, the environmental, Linda, help me out with that, ESAC.
Yeah, Environmental Sustainability Community Advisory Committee.
And that's open to everyone, the public included. And that is where the trustees listen and hear what kinds of ways we need to improve the work that we're doing at the board. So I'm going to ask Linda if you would stay on for another 5 minutes, but I'm going to encourage you to take your comfort break. Feel free to stay logged in if you want, or log in and out, up to you. We'll start again at 10:15. And question, the folks in the room, if they've done Ecoschools Tdsb, the application was painful. What do people say about your application certification process?
Yeah, well, I think
we've transitioned out of the, I've heard the previous iterations of the ECA were almost like filling out your taxes over and over and over. So we've tried to make it as active and engaging as possible. So this is a little bit more, we've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. So for example, drop-down lists, very small numerical text fields. And then so basically you could picture, maybe questions 1 through 10 are drop downs, check boxes, multi-select, type in a number. And then we still give you the little opportunity at the end to put a paragraph of text to really provide the context of what you're doing. So try to make it as efficient as possible. And of course, we're always there to offer support and all of that as well throughout the process. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Alex. I won't keep you much longer. I know Chris is going to walk us through the program, but I so appreciate the partnership. And as you said, we've just expanded our friendship with Ecoschools Canada and really taking advantage of all the resources you offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Really nice to meet everyone. And just through kind of being with my video off and muted, just overhearing some of the conversations that were happening leading up, you're going to fit in just great. My gosh, you sounds like you're already all-stars in a lot of ways. So yeah, kudos for that. We can't wait to see it on the platform.
All right, thanks again. All right, over to you, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, let me share my screen and we'll get into the Ecoschools Certification application. And as Alex was mentioning, we're going to kind of call it the ECA because it's nice and short, but that does stand for Ecoschools Certification application. And this is what their login page looks like, their home page. We're going to go there in a moment. So I'm going to show you some steps, and then whenever I start a little timer in the corner, that's going to be, well, I'll also mention it, but it'll be your signal to do it yourself. So you'll be swapping between Zoom and your browser because we're going to get you registered and actually started on your first action today. So you can leave here getting a taste of what the ECA is all about. So when you type in the URL, next thing you'll do is tap on that register button down at the bottom. So here is our login page, app.ecoschools.ca. Now remember, you don't do anything until I get the timer going. You can do this in English or French, depending on your preference. And of course, click that register button. Now let's go ahead and load in the site yourself. And you know what, I don't have a timer on this screen, I think, but we'll take, let's say 30 seconds for you to switch over to your browser and type in app.ecoschools.ca. And I guess I should have even been putting it into the chat. Did Natasha do that?
Yeah, Pam already placed it in the chat.
Pam did, okay. Between the two of you guys, this is gonna go like a piece of cake. Is that how things go? Maybe.
And as I would say with my grade 8s, if you got yourself logged in and registered, put woohoo or thumbs up in the chat.
No, you're not going that far yet.
Oh, darn. I'm like...
Pam,
sorry.
calm down. Wait your turn. And if you did this already, that's fantastic. You'll just hang on, Rebecca. All right, so we're going to go to the next screen here. This is what you'll be looking at once you click that register button. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This is your personal information, so don't worry about your school just yet or anything else. It's just you, your school email, etc. They do want you to use official school emails, not your Gmail or whatnot, and you'll get a message about that. But I'm going to give you 1 minute to work on filling out all of this information, and then you can click the next button. Luckily, you can pick any password you like. they're not too particular on combinations of numbers and symbols and whatnot.
I'm not able to register.
I'm sorry?
I'm not able to. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, so have you gone to app.ecoschools.ca in your browser?
I tried. Let me see.
There is a link. Pam just put another link in the chat that you can click on. You may need to put HTTPS. I don't know if that one, let me just test it myself.
Oh.
Yeah, that works. That also works.
Okay, sorry.
No, the link is fine. Link is fine, Pam. Their server switches it over. If you need more time, just put a quick message in the chat. I think we may have one person that needs more time.
You want to go back to the screen so they know what it looks like?
More time. Okay, no, that's no problem. We'll wait a little bit longer. And of course, your role at the school is going to be staff member. If you pick either of the other choices, you'll get a message that you have to contact someone on the eco team to do that. So
when you have the login and register, which one do you click?
You're going to do register. Click on the register button.
Okay.
Then when you come back, you'll be doing the login once you've done this part. But for now, just register. All right, for those of you that are moving ahead, and if those of you that need more time, the next screen is super easy, so not to worry, because all you have to do is pick a avatar for yourself, and you can upload your own photo if that floats your boat. But they have some cute animal-ish ones there, animal and insects. I'm not even sure if you can not pick anything, but maybe. Once you've picked your lovely avatar, then you're going to click the next button down at the bottom. We will talk about finding and registering your school because most of you will not be in the system. If you did this last year, then obviously you're there, but this is going to be the issue. So you need to know your school's address, and hopefully you've got that. So again, if you were in this last year, you'll see your school appear in the list and you can select it. But for most of you, you're not going to see your school and you're going to click the can't find your school link. Now hang on until I get the timer going before you try that. At the address box up at the top there, it is a little bit like Google Maps autocomplete. So you can start typing in your address and you'll see some suggestions show up underneath. And when you finally see your full address, you can click on it. When you do that, you will see a list of schools appear that I guess are kind of in the neighborhood that are already in their database. I don't think you will see your school, but if you do, great, you can click on it. Otherwise, you're clicking that link down there about can't find your school. That's going to change this dialog a little bit, and it'll look like this. And so you'll be entering in the name of your school. So put that in how you like it to be, what the school type is, and you'll need to add the school board, and you should just type in Toronto and you'll be able to, like Tdsb should pop up. Your position will be teacher down at the bottom there, but I will start the timer. So give you at least a minute to figure out finding or registering your school name. And if you've got any issues, pop it in the chat or just turn on your mic. And we'll try and figure that out. Unfortunately, we don't have access to their test server, so I can't sort of do this live with you. I wanted to do that, but we were told no. Oh, you're on mute, Pam.
Never fails. Remind me, what's the button it's can't find my school that I click to get here?
Yes, it's.
Pam, why don't you share your screen so then people can watch as you're doing it, then they can learn.
Oh, I don't think she's doing it because we can't register a school. We were told that too. I was going to register schools that haven't been in Ecoschools before, and they're like, no, don't do that. All right. The only other thing I'm going to point out on this page is that you do need to check the agree to the terms of use. Now, you don't have to give up the rights to your DNA or anything like that. I actually haven't read the terms of use, so perhaps we should do that one day. So if you haven't already filled in everything as so and click next, you could probably click next.
I don't know where it's thinking.
The next part, some basic school information. If you're not sure about the total enrollment or number of teaching staff, you can just guesstimate those numbers. They can be edited anytime in the administration section. We'll show you where that is. So I think I've got a 30-second timer here to finish this part off. And this is something you only have to do once, right? So once you've got your school registered, you won't need to ever, well, you may need to update the enrollment and teaching staff, but this process won't happen again. Okay, I'm going to move on because that's really it. We're going to now walk through getting your plan going, but are there any questions so far, or any issues, or anyone still kind of catching up? Okay. But you did click on the register button on the login screen. And if you want to turn on your mic, if that's easier, go right ahead.
Hi, good morning. It brought me straight to the create a plan thing for GB Little when I registered.
Okay, did you go to app.ecoschools.ca?
Yes, I did go to it brought me directly to check it out, Tdsb create a plan website.
Oh, you know what? I suspect your school might have been in already.
Maybe.
If that happened.
Yes.
What school are you with?
I'm at GB Little Public School.
Okay.
Well, then bonus for you, I guess. Did that happen to anybody else? You didn't have to type in information? Well, we're all learning with this new system, and maybe there's glitches, I don't know. But you can edit that information. I'll show you in a sec. If you feel like anything's missing, you can add stuff about your school. All right, I guess we're not getting any other questions. So we can now go on to adding other people. So if you've got other staff members, especially that you want to add, I'm going to point out that you only want to add people that are actively going to be helping you fill out your Ecoschools application. If you've got volunteers or parents that help out with stuff in the schoolyard, let's say, don't add them in unless they are helping you fill out the application. Like I say, you can't delete people once you add them, at least not at this moment. So we don't want to be adding people unnecessarily. When you do make a student account, they don't ask for any names or emails. So that's great. There's no personal information issues with students. And they, once you create a student account, they'll have very limited access. They can answer questions, but they can't add new actions or delete actions or anything like that. Otherwise, adding people is super easy. So we'll take a look at that now. You don't have to add anyone today. Sorry, I'm just going to mention that. If you've got another colleague with you helping out, you can certainly add them. But you can think about it first. So first thing is to click on the administration link over on the left-hand side, and then click on users. And in this particular case, we got a couple people in the list. And if we wanted to add a new person, we would click on the plus button up at the top there. And when you do that, then we get a dialog popping up, and you can first of all choose the role. I'm going to go through showing you what the student role looks like because the form changes a little bit. So let's go ahead and choose student, and all you can do is put in a username. You can optionally add their first or last name, but again, maybe just first name. In terms of the username, you could call it student 1, student 2. It's really up to you. You could use their name, I suppose, as their username, and then just leave out first name and last name. In my case, because when I logged in, I have access to all the schools, so it's asking me to search for a school, but your school should be already selected since you're logged in and have registered your school. You can initially create a really easy password for your student or colleague, and then they can change it once they log in. And again, I'm not going to sort of wait and let you add people to your registration. That's something you can do anytime. But I do want to walk you through making a plan with your actions. This is the meat and potatoes, so to speak, or plant-based protein and potatoes of the whole thing. And as Alex mentioned before, there's over 40 actions that you can choose from that interest you, right? So there's a couple things you have to do, but for the most part, you are free to choose what you want to focus on. You can
the number of staff in my school, I don't know, and I'm stuck at that. It's not moving forward.
Just make up a number, what you think it is. Okay. It's actually not super critical. It's just part of their aggregated data that they show on the dashboard that, there's this many educators involved in Ecoschools, or something to that effect. They use it for their data crunching, but yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned. So as I was saying, you can add or subtract actions at any time. So even after you've registered, and down the road you think, wow, we did everything, we've got time to do more, add more, why not? Or if you find that there's something that you're stuck on that you can't do, maybe it's because it's COVID, you can remove that action and not have it in your plan.
Here it says cast number failed for Valley 270 students at part enrollment size.
Okay.
Cast the number failed.
So again, make a best guess as to how many you think you got at school. You can talk to your OA later and find out exactly, but again, yeah, not
okay, it's gone. I just added students, but I've removed it, so it's gone.
Okay.
It's done.
Fantastic. Okay. That's excellent.
I wouldn't have.
The number of actions that you do does ultimately determine your certification level. So if you pick, 5 actions, you're probably going to hit, 50 points or maybe a bit less depending on the actions. And if you pick all 40 actions or more, then you'll have way more points than you need. So it's up to you. Ultimately.
So are we at great action?
Not quite yet. I'm just kind of going over the general idea of the plans and the actions, but we are going to momentarily cover making a plan. So hang tight. We've got a question of previous year's certifications. We did send them all of our previous year's levels that schools got, and they are going to be adding it to the system. So when you, I imagine it's under administration and then plans, you will be able to pick what year you want to look at. You're just going to see, you won't be able to see any details because of course it was a different system, Vicky, but you will be able to see what you've done in the past. So especially this year, choose actions that make sense for you and your school and what's, interesting for you and your students, and things that you're not going to be able to do because of COVID, then, don't add those kind of actions if you know you're not.
Where do you have this?
I'm sorry?
Where do you have those actions that you are choosing?
Well, we haven't chosen anything yet.
Okay.
So hang tight, because that's actually right next. Here's a little menu of all the actions that they've got. We'll share this PDF with you. It's a little bit hidden on their website, but it's a great way to quickly go through everything that you can choose from. You can also see them right in the app, and some of you may be looking at those, but there are quite a few. And if some look familiar to what you've done in the past, that's because, of course, Ecoschools Canada developed their program from ours. So yeah, there are some similarities. And so some things you won't notice any difference really as to what, hang on, Vicky, we're gonna get there in a sec. So first of all, I'm gonna talk about the dashboard, because that's probably what you're looking at right now. And it's what you're gonna see every time you log in. Right now, it's gonna look empty because we haven't created a plan yet. But once you've got your plan going, you're gonna see your progress in your plan. And of course, from here, you can choose what kind of plan you want. And there's like a package plan, there's a number of them, or you can just start picking your own actions. So that's what it's going to show you, what that's going to look like. So here's what your dashboard probably looks like right now, which is not a lot of anything. We do have the Ecoschools deadline. It's actually May 13th. I think they must have changed it from when we got this screenshot from. But at this point, you can click on the Create Plan button and we'll get started. So I'll give you 30 seconds to click on that Create Plan. Don't do anything after that. And if anybody is stuck or has any other issues, just let me know.
Hi, Pam. Hi, Chris. We completed our plan, but it's showing 0 of 5 points. So we obviously did something wrong. Do we just go into
No, because you probably haven't entered any information yet.
Okay.
Right. So yes, you're going to start off with 0, obviously, but you've got 0 out of 5, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've picked one action worth 5 points. So that's your possibility at the moment, is 5 total points. And then as you add more actions, you'll see that number get bigger and bigger. You'll also see what you're eligible for up at the top there.
If it already says completed, we can just reopen it and fix things then, right?
You can, yeah, you can. And yes, Michael, you can add and remove actions. We're going to cover that in just a sec.
Okay.
So if you click the Create Plan button, you're going to see this business here. And we're going to suggest you pick a particular plan for right now. It doesn't really matter because they've kind of got a theme going with some of these plans, but they're not all going to get you perhaps to where you want to get, which is platinum or gold or whatever. But what we'd like you to do is to start with the Getting Started plan, which has 8 actions. So click on Start with the Getting Started plan, please. And like I say, you can add whatever actions you like after that, or remove ones that you don't want from that. Here is part of your dashboard now, once you've got a plan. And
we don't have a plan yet.
Like Rebecca, you'll have 0 points at the moment. But that's okay, because we're going to work on that. If you scroll down a little bit, you will see the actions that have been chosen for your plan. And this is a screenshot from before. So you may not have Meatless Monday. That's okay. Whatever you've got in there is fine. But what I wanted to point out here is that if you mouse over any of these action cards, like the active and sustainable school travel, it's got a little delete button. So if you don't want a particular action, click on the delete button. There'll be a little confirm message and you can remove that. Some of the actions have a lock symbol, like the Getting Started action card, and those are actions that you have to do. And this year, I believe there's only the two of them, environmental literacy, pardon me, and Getting Started. And that's fine. I'm going to take a look a little bit closer at the Getting Started card in a moment. But there is another card that I want to point out. Sorry, I've changed things a little bit. If you click on Library on the left-hand side, you can see all of the possible actions. And when you're in the library, the action cards have a plus button on them. So this is where you can add any action from the big library into your plan.
So I'm on Getting Started, and I have Action Guide, Resources and Certification, Questions. Am I on the right something?
Well, Pam was going to help you out with that.
I'm going to move you to room number 1 with me, and then we'll share screens. How's that?
Okay, perfect.
So let me just do that.
I'm going to go back to our plan. So if you've gone to library to take a look at these, go back to our plan. But one action in particular that I want to just kind of highlight is the create your own action. There's 3 of these cards. So if there's anything that you're doing in your school that's kind of unique, that's an eco action that you can't find in the other actions. So if you go through the 40 actions and you're like, well, we do this thing, but it's not in here. Well, you can just use one of these cards, and all you have to do is type in what you're doing and who's involved, and you'll see when you open up the action. But just to keep that in mind, that you can create your own, which is a kind of handy feature. All right, I'm going back to our Getting Started plan, and I'm actually going to click on the Getting Started card to take a look at what that looks like. And each of the actions has the same kind of layout, where you start off on the About tab. So there's the 4 tabs across the top there. And so the About gives you the quick overview about what this action is about, what you might be doing, perhaps who should be involved. The Curriculum tab will give you a quick overview on any curriculum connections. Because this is a national program, a lot of the curriculum connections may be more general, but I'm pretty sure you guys can handle figuring out the rest there for inside your own classroom. The SDG tab will connect any of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They claim this one is good for any of them, but a lot of the actions will show specific SDGs there. The Ecoschools in Action shows a little photo gallery of other schools doing that particular action. The Getting Started one, I don't think is terribly interesting, but you can click on the photos and there'll be a little blurb about who that is and what they're doing. Now, the big part about the card is the action guide section. And this is where you get the details about that particular action. Good idea to read through this part before you add an action to your plan, just to make sure that it's going to fit what you want to do with your eco team. The tip section is good. And of course, you'll see at the bottom there any materials that you'll be using in this action. Again, those are often PDFs, but you can click on those links and materials to see what you're going to get. The next part after Action Guide is the resource section. And this is where you're going to find worksheets and planners and things like that that relate to that particular action. So all of the resources that you need for an action are embedded in the action card. So it's really easy for you to find things. And the last part of it is the actual question for your certification. This is where you fill in all of your data for that particular action. Each action has a start date. So you would, in this case, put in today. Getting Started asks, I don't know why they ask for your student your enrollment and number of staff again, because we already just did that, but perhaps that's a new feature that they added, and they still have it in 2 places. And all you really need to do in the questions is just answer honestly. And you can come back. So if you can start an action at the beginning of the year, and some actions obviously take longer than others. And as you complete parts of your action, you can come back and have staff or students. You can assign students to do a particular action or part of an action, and have them log in if you've registered them, and have them fill in this information. And if we go down to the bottom of this particular one, you can see there's a come back later button, and that just kind of saves where you're at. In fact, it saves anytime you type or make a selection, it saves it automatically. So you never have to worry about saving anything that you enter here. They do have an add attachment feature for each action. So if you have documentation about what you've done, you can add PDFs, you can add photos. They don't do videos yet, but I know that they're working on that. And when you've completed the action completely, you can click on the done button, but you can still come back and edit things even after you've clicked done. I'm pretty sure about that. So what I'm going to do right now is give you guys some time to start this getting started action. And click on the come back later button at the bottom, and you'll be able to see whatever progress in the dashboard. So I'm going to give you at least 1 minute right now to make sure you've clicked on getting started in your plan, and fill in as much as you can, or even just the top part. I'm now going to look at some questions here. So Esther, you've added getting started. Okay, so it sounds like you're doing things manually. If you go to library, you'll be able to add any of the other actions. So library will be in the left-hand column, the blue left-hand menu bar.
Hi, Chris.
Yes.
This is Esther.
Hi.
So I didn't add it manually. I added the whole getting started. So it gave me, the five, I guess, on the list. But I also want to add environmental literacy as another whole set. And then I can take away from there if I need to. But I can't get back to that page.
Oh,
so that
yeah,
means I have to go through the library each time.
Yeah, so once you've picked a plan at the beginning of the year, then they don't give you those options to add other plans.
Okay. So then we would just go through them individually and just add them from the library?
Yes. So if you go to library, you can, again, anything that seems interesting that you want to do, just add it to your plan.
Okay. And then how many points do we need to get to platinum and bronze and all the other levels? You're
going to see that on your progress bar in the dashboard. Bronze is 50, platinum is 101, silver I think is 65, and gold is 76 or something like that. But you'll see that it's very clear on your progress bar once you've got a plan in place, and that should, because I want to choose plans according to how many points you can get, so that we can try to reach a goal. Exactly. Yeah. In general, like if I need 100 points and I've only added getting started, that's only giving me I don't remember how many points. I think it's 60 right now. I'm going to need to add more. Yeah. Yes. So I'll need to add more to get to the 100, right? Exactly. Now, don't necessarily do that now. I am going to offer some advice at the end of this about how you can proceed with your actions, unless you want to. Okay. But if you want to talk it over with your eco team first and work together on figuring out what actions you think are going to be good this year, but up to you. Totally flexible. And if you add a bunch of actions now and then talk to your eco team and they're like, nah, let's not do that, you can just remove it from the plan. Yeah, I have someone from our school coming in tomorrow for a workshop. Okay, perfect. So I guess, yeah, she and I will talk after tomorrow's workshop. Okay. And like I say, you can add them now and then remove stuff you don't want to do. Sadhana is asking, can we add students? Yes, absolutely. And again, we're going to be sharing the slides and the video from today. So if you do want to go back and kind of go over things, on our website, I do have, and I'll put the link in the chat. We've got links straight to help videos from Ecoschools Canada, and they talk about managing users, adding students, adding other people. All right, so our minute is definitely up. Again, you guys can come back to these plans at any point and these actions to add information. So I think I'm going to move ahead because you have got your first action started. So congratulations. You're well on your way to becoming a certified Ecoschool this year. And give yourself a pat on the back, even you, Becky. Yeah. All right. So I know I've been talking a while, and you guys are probably getting bored of me. We've taken a look with Pam at new perspectives on climate action, how we can stay positive and move forward, even with all the grim news that we get. We're not done yet. Let's keep going. I've shown you how you can register your school in the ECA, so you've got that done. We've added some new accounts, perhaps. You chose your plan, and you started your first action. So these are all wonderful things, and of course, we had a great time doing it, I hope. There weren't a lot of issues in the chat, so I think it's gone pretty smoothly, and that is really the result of using the ECA, is that it is pretty much a smooth operation. It's not painful like the Ecoschools application has been in the past, and I hope you guys are looking forward to using this as we move forward. And I'm really excited that we're now part of the national program, and that all the great things that our schools are doing for Ecoschools gets added to their data, right? So they're able to show off everything that's happening across the country, and I think it's pretty exciting. Now, obviously, you're not done yet. So as I was talking to Esther, your next step is going to be meeting up with your Eco team. Maybe that's virtually, if that makes more sense. And we did have a number of schools last year meet virtually on Zoom or Google Meet, and work through their eco actions and their plans. So work with your Eco team to pick the remaining actions that you need to get to the certification level that you would like to achieve this year. And you can shoot higher than perhaps you might get to. That's okay. If you put enough actions in to reach platinum, but you don't quite make it there by the end of the year, no big deal. In fact, Ecoschools Canada has said, don't focus on the points this year. Focus on the actions and focus on the environmental literacy that you're working on with your students. And that's way more important than, what points you get at the end of the year. Especially, that we're COVID hobbled and all that. Any final questions about the Ecoschools Canada application? And again, we will be sharing a link to signing up for office hours with us. So if you find you're having some issues or trouble, you can, email us, but you can also sign up for our office hours and we'll meet with you personally, via Zoom, and work out any issues you have. Car's asking, will final audits be online? Probably yes, especially this year. Ecoschools Canada is going to be doing the initial audit since this is their program. But our plan is also to be meeting with eco teams, probably online this year. We'll see how that works out in the future. One thing that we've discovered from the past spring when we did audits is that it's very, very convenient to meet online. We don't have to drive around the city. From an Ecoschools perspective, that makes a lot of sense to us, that we're not spewing out exhaust as we travel around to different places, but we'll see how it goes. If I can bike somewhere, then I'll happily do that. I live in the East End, so any East End schools, for sure, I'll come and visit you. Pam is out in Mississauga somewhere, so anybody out in the West, she'll go visit you guys. We'll work it out. But no other questions? All right. I wonder if Pam's back from her breakout room.
I'm back.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, because that's actually our next stage is to, I'm going to stop sharing it. Oh, no, I need to share, don't I? I'm going to keep sharing.
Yeah.
Pam, you're going to keep talking.
I am going to keep talking. So, Chris, if you want to set up the rooms, I'll talk. And so what I like about our time together is that we can learn so much of what others are doing. So some of you have done Ecoschools during the COVID time. Some of you did it during virtual time. Some of us, like me, I didn't actually even do Ecoschools last year. I did environment teaching, but so how do we do this and how do we move forward? And Margaret Wheatley is just one of my favorite authors who talks about change and moving together with relationships. So Chris is going to put us into breakout rooms. So you'll be automatically assigned. And then in your breakout room, if you go to the next slide, Chris, we just thought, we would ask a very simple question. If everybody has a role in speaking up and taking action to limit global warming and take care of our planet, how do you hope to do that this year? How are you going to work with your students? What plans do you have? What challenges are you going to overcome? And I think it would just be, we've got about 10 minutes of sharing. So we're going to put you in rooms of about 4 each. So if each of you take approximately about 1 to 1.5 minutes to share what you think you're going to do this year, we can get inspired by each other's actions. What questions might you have before we put you in the breakout rooms? Okay. So again, we'll automatically put you in breakout rooms. Again, just a chance to have a conversation with others to talk about what you're hoping to do. So welcome back, everyone. Good discussions. Again, many of us are saying, how do we do this? We heard some folks bringing in fashion takes action, maybe using the auditorium or gym for a large meeting, obviously moving virtual. Soraya, I want to, October 27th, I know you're going to be speaking about your virtual eco team last year on our OISE webinar. So I want to make sure people know about that so we can learn from you. But yes, and actions at home count. Is there anyone that had a great idea that how they're going to do this year that they would love to share? Is there anyone? Yeah, Sarai, go ahead.
So because we're in the middle of COVID and we're actually in a school, we've sent out parent permission forms and they've come back and we've had over 50 kids want to be part of this. And I've taken your suggestion of putting it into a 3-month increment. So we have kids spread out throughout the school year. We're having our first meeting tomorrow outside with all the kids. And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide them into classrooms for the kids who are part of each classroom to have smaller meetings. So we're not mixing cohorts because we have kids grades 3 to grade 6 participating. The kids who are going home for lunch, I'm providing a Zoom link for them. And we have an Eco Club Google Classroom so that if we go online, we can do that. And the Zoom link or Google Meet will be part of that as well.
Oh, awesome. I think others were mentioning like the Google Classroom idea for Eco Club.
Yeah, and we're having a big meeting. There's probably 50 or over 55, 60 kids who want to participate. So it's a huge number of kids.
Awesome.
We want to say it's because they like us so much, but I have a feeling it's because we're the only game in town.
Well, I think so too.
And we know that sometimes we get the people that maybe aren't the athletes or the people that aren't the academic or extroverts, but these are the people with heart. So it's not a bad thing to be the only game in town. Any other good ideas that you're going to try this year?
My breakout room, we focused a lot on eco gardens. Just so happened a lot of us tended to be in the same neighborhood, and I was thinking that it would be really great to organize an eco garden bike ride for local schools, just to check out what everyone's doing. So I might try and set that up at some point.
Right, and after the face-to-face tour, a virtual tour is also kind of cool. I don't know, I would love to see that. And I just want to put that out there too. Like, if you're having an eco meeting virtually, give us some notice, and we'd love to join you and validate the kids that are being part of that. All right, one more idea, and then we'll wrap it up for the day.
Well, for me, I'm new, and this is my first time. But I would like to see if you can come through Zoom, talk to my school concerning the compost and all that, where to the recycling and everything, because they need to know. The kids just drop things anyhow, though the caretaker is trying his best to see that, talking to the teachers to see that the kids do this. But when they hear from you too, I think that would be good. And again, I haven't seen any green beans. Are you going to give us some green beans?
Well, and so I'm going to answer two parts of that, because as we wrap up, absolutely, I'd love to talk to your kids, and I can also talk to staff at staff meetings if what you want to invite me in.
Yes.
We don't do assemblies. We've got partners for that, but absolutely, we will support you. And then when you have questions like green bins or how to do this, we have office hours, and you can get to them through My Path. So every Wednesday and Thursday, you're welcome to register for office hours to find out how to do this, ask questions. Of course, email works, as always. So if you need to know answers sooner than later, but the office hours allows us to share screen and take a look at actions and things like that. Also, don't forget to be part of our webinars, because we're often talking about inspirational practices from all of you. And of course, our conference, November 6th. And so, Chris, I don't know if you want to share that screen.
Yes.
It's on our website. So a key part is making sure that you're part of the ongoing dialogue about having courage, and it's a free conference on Saturday. I'm going to wrap that up. So absolutely, reach out to me for support, for Chris for support. Jen's on leave for a bit, so Natasha will be working with us and helping us with so many things. And the webinars are on, you can see there's a couple webinars coming up. So when you go to our website, you'll see the links to register. They're usually from 4 to 5 because they're with OISE as well. So we've got an amazing gardener coming up on tomorrow. Then we have our team and other folks from Tdsb leading climate action. And then we have there's a new guide about teaching climate change from LSF, and they're going to present that on the 18th. Yeah, so there's a couple there. There's our newsletter that will help you get connected. There's 2 newsletters, one from Ecoschools Canada and then one from Tdsb. Make sure you're absolutely signed up to the Tdsb one to get the updates.
And we'll share links to all of this stuff after this morning.
Yeah, you'll get a nice thank you email with the connections to what we've done and some of the links that we've talked about.
Thank you.
Great. So yes, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And the webinars are absolutely recorded. Yes. And so you don't even have to register to get access to the ones that are recorded. So they're on our websites as well. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I'm so excited to be working with you again this year. I get to see faces. Not 40 grade 8 students going, yeah, miss.
That was fun secretly, wasn't it?
Secretly. All right. Take care, everyone. Good to see you. Good to see your faces.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Merci.